first episode of the Choose Happiness, Don't Give Up series. And our first guest could not be a better person to kick this off. Please welcome Henry Rosendale, coming to us from Baltimore, Maryland. Hey, Henry.
Hello, all.
Thank you so much for being here.
I feel very welcome.
Well, I have to say, being a longtime Philadelphia Eagles fan from Philly, I am digging the green hair. So thank you for that.
I'm not sure my 49ers would be happy about it.
Oh, right. Well, there's plenty of time before the season starts if you want to, change it up. So again, thank you for being here. You recently went through a tremendous lifestyle change. You lost 110 pounds in less than a year. Wow, it's amazing. It's mind-blowing. It is awe-inspiring. Can you just kind of walk us through your journey of first, what made you decide to want to do that, and then the steps of how you actually did it?
Sure. I'm going to make a mild correction, though. It was about 15 months.
Okay.
So I don't want to set unrealistic goals for other folks.
Okay, still.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess the story starts a couple of years ago. I had an unrelated medical issue that I unexpected. And I was one of the guys who never went to the doctor like I should have. So I ended up seeing my primary, who didn't even know I was one of his patients anymore. I had to start over. So in the process of doing all of that, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, very high blood pressure. And because I was big, I was 290 pounds. In the course of that, it took months to get the medication right. We had to keep trying different things and adding. And at the end of it all, I ended up on 3 different blood pressure medications to get my blood pressure to a place that was safe. And then he said, everything else is going to have to be you. Like, you're going to have to exercise. You're going to have to do a little better. And so I said, well, what would it take to get off of all of them? And he said, well, you'd have to lose a significant amount of weight. And I said, okay, then I think I'll do that. And it's funny because he was, as supportive as he's going to be, but I could tell he was like, yeah, I've heard that one. But I am a bit of a person that kind of goes head first, if I decide to do something. So I gave it some thought and I said, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to figure out a way to make this happen. And that was, I guess, January-ish before COVID. So I started in the beginning just trying to do a little better with portions, eating, healthier stuff, and a few pounds came off. And then I kind of reached out to my doctor again and said, what, I've watched different people do diets where you're buying somebody's product, and if they work for you, absolutely do it, and that's fine. I didn't feel like I'd have success with that because I felt like I needed something that was that I could maintain. So I talked to my doctor and I said, how many calories do I need to maintain my weight? And he told me, and I said, okay, well, if I have 300 less than that a day, is that safe? And he said, yeah, 200-300 is safe. If you're very hungry one day, probably don't, maybe stick with the whole amount, because in the end, your body needs a certain amount of calories. And if you have less, you lose weight. And if you have more, you gain weight. I mean, that's the simple version. Yeah. So I figured that out. And so I started tracking, my calories, and I still felt like I needed to move it along more. So then I was like, okay, now I got to add exercise. But I wasn't in shape, and it's hard to start exercising when you're not in shape. And so I said, well, what can I do that's something that I can do, to start with? And everybody knows how to walk. So, I decided to do some walking, and that started out with just a little here and there, I bought some weights for like my ankles, and then COVID hit, and we were home for a bit, and so that was a time that it was a little easier for me to use like the exercise bike in the morning. So a lot of the reason I think that I didn't do a lot of exercising was I felt like I only had so many hours outside of work a day, and I wanted to do other things. So, I was doing exercise more, and then I was asked to go back to the office, because, but we had limited people, so I was there alone. And I think you have to take opportunities sometimes. And as weird as it sounds, being alone in an office was an opportunity because, number one, there were no snacks around because I controlled what was in the office. There weren't people bringing in donuts, so what was in the fridge is what I put there. Um, and then also, I didn't really have a lunch break per se because I was just eating at my desk while I was working. So I would throw ankle weights on and do loops in the hallway for 15, 30 minutes with my earbuds in, and that was just a way to get some exercise in. Um and then we talk about opportunities. A bizarre thing is, so I worked through the fall that way, and had lost a decent amount of weight, and had gotten off of one of my medications, and then I got diagnosed with sleep apnea
Oh
and got put on a
gosh.
CPAP machine, which I wasn't thrilled with at first. However, it created a situation where I was waking up at 5 in the morning every day because I wasn't completely refreshed. Like, I had such good sleep. And I was like, well, I can either sit around the house or I can do something else. So I started walking outside instead of just in the halls. And that got to be a habit. And it got to the point where I was walking 6.5 miles a day before
Wow.
work, because that's what I was doing with my time. And um, just kept doing it and kept doing it. And this past March, yeah, this past March, I went back to the doctor for physical, or for a checkup on the blood pressure, and he took me off the last one. So I got off all three.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
And it
first
was
of all.
110 pounds. That's what got me off all three. So
Wow. What's so inspirational is that you took something like COVID, where most of us were in our jam pants gaining weight, making sourdough bread, you know what I mean, home, and you took that and you really turned it on its head and looked at it as an opportunity to do what you really wanted to do and needed to do. And even something like sleep apnea, oh my goodness, even that became something great. So you're such a great picture of it's all how you look at something. I
I
mean,
think you have to do that. I think sometimes there are difficulties that can be opportunities.
yeah. Wow, that's really swimming against the stream, because I think too we can get caught up in, oh my gosh, global pandemic, everything's horrible, and really kind of go down, a hole of, I don't want to say depression, but of just kind of misery, and focus on everything that's bad. And you really were like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what I can to make my life better in this time.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there about, if you can get buried in sort of the negativity, and I think you have to find a way to not let that happen. And I think that's also why I was able to keep doing the walks in the morning, even if it was cold, or sleeting or whatever, is that hour in the morning I got to clear my head and just think about, breathe in fresh air and just start the day. And look, nobody's immune. Like, certainly some of these things upset me, but you just gotta work through it, and find a way to make that happen.
Right. Well, and to that, I mean, sleet is a great example of something that someone can look at as a setback or a roadblock. I mean, did you hit challenges along the way? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, certainly. Like, you can't make it sound like it's easy. It's a lot of work. I guess, if well, we'll start with the weather piece because we've already sort of mentioned it. Um, the Because I decided I wanted to do the outdoor thing, there certainly was a weather component, but I think if you have enough desire for what you want to accomplish, and also if you get in a habit, I think it was more like getting in a habit, because I did go walk it all every day outside, and it was before like some of the worst weather, that by the time it came around, I was like, well, I'll just put on a raincoat, and I'll put on an extra, sweatshirt, and I'll put on, my waterproof shoes, and we'll still do it, because I felt like I missed that if I didn't do it. And so the weather was
Wow.
secondary to the desire to get that peaceful time.
Oh, that's huge.
And you have to be stubborn too.
Right.
You're not going to win nature. I'm doing this.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
And then also, like, if it was like torrential, like, there were a couple times where the snow was deep enough that I wasn't doing 6 miles. Maybe I was only doing one loop around the neighborhood just to get the outside. Then you get on the exercise bike, or you could do some, resistance training, or just something else, to still get that, blood flowing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like I said, you got to be a little stubborn, and have a little desire and create the habit. Um, the other big obstacle, and probably the most difficult one for when you're losing weight, is when you plateau, which is you'll spend a week or two and nothing changes, and you're doing everything right. And that's one where you just start to be like, why, why is, I'm doing all this work. I'm like eating less, and, you know, I did it in a way that I wasn't like crazy hungry, but there were days, where you wanted a little more. But the plateauing, I think the only way to work through that is to understand that it's going to happen. Like, go in and understand that it's going to happen, and then when it does happen, recognize that that's what's going on. That all you got to do is just keep doing what you're doing. It's going to work out. And then also, while the scale is your friend to an extent when you're trying to lose weight, because you can see the progress, it's also not as friendly when you're plateauing and it's telling you nothing's working. But that's when the tape measure might help you out. So, because it might just be that things are moving around, things are
Mm.
toning, and things are, just doing a different thing. And so yeah, so if you see that you've lost half an inch, or, a quarter of an inch or whatever, but you haven't lost any weight, you still know that something's going on, and you can use that little bit to keep you going.
That is so helpful. Because I think we do get stuck on the thing that we measure, whatever we're measuring ourselves by. And if that's not going in the direction we want, it's like, well, how else can I measure this? Or how else can I check that? And you might even see, I have more stamina now going upstairs, like something like that,
Mhm.
where it's actually a big thing, even though it's not, the number on the scale. And I love what you said about how if it was torrential, you still did the one loop. You didn't do the 6.5 miles, and that to me speaks volumes, because someone else might have just said, well, great excuse to pull the covers over my head and knock it up. But still, even just doing that bit, it was like, you're not gonna, like you said, you're not gonna get me whether I'm
Yeah,
still gonna do this, which shows how in control you are of what you can do, regardless of anything else. And that's huge. Even as a metaphor, that's huge.
and habits are habits because you do them over and over. And if you say, well, if it's going to be bad weather, I'm going to stay in bed, then that might become a habit, and you don't want that one.
Yes, 100%. I also love that you really took a long view. It wasn't, I'm going to do this in 2 months and starve and all that kind of thing. I think that you were very determined, but you also, I think, sort of held the goal loosely in a good way. Like, you weren't like, it has to be by this certain date, which I think for these huge goals is really, really important.
Absolutely.
Um, and I feel like that's what stops people sometimes from saying, oh, I really want to do this thing, like I want to lose weight, or quit smoking, or train for a marathon, and they know it's going to take a long time, and they know it's going to be really hard. And we can even apply this to something like going back to school to make a career shift. They know it's not going to take a couple months, it's going to take years. So do you have any advice for someone who really wants to try something daunting that is going to be hard? So, but if they're afraid to take that leap, any words of wisdom for that?
I think what you want to do in that situation is figure out whatever it is that you want to do. Figure out what it is about that you absolutely love. Figure out what about that is what draws you to wanting to do that, and make that your big goal. Make that the thing that you're focusing on. For me, the big goal was getting off the blood pressure medication. Um, and then break it up into little goals. Um, I I look back at losing 110 pounds, and I don't understand how I did it. Like some days, but I really, I mean, I do, but looking at it in the big picture, I don't. But what I did is made it bite-sized pieces, made it lose 5 pounds. Well, the way I was doing it was about around 2 pounds a week. So 5 pounds was, 2.5, 3 weeks. And you can be motivated for short periods of time a lot easier than being motivated for 15 months straight for the same goal. So I think that you just have to. So the marathon runner probably isn't saying, I need to run 26 miles. They're saying, I need to run 5, and then I need to run 7, and then I need to run 9. And you're just pushing it up and up, which funny enough, I started running and I'm kind of doing that at the moment, trying to push up to bigger numbers, but you got to do it a little at a time. But yeah, definitely bite-sized pieces, definitely small goals. So like your person maybe who wants to quit smoking, it's a hard thing. And maybe your first step is just to cut back a little bit, and then cut back a little bit more. And then maybe your next step is to use a patch, or maybe to get a professional counselor to help, or whatever that is. Just smaller measurable successes to get to your end success. The person that wants to start a new career, maybe it's just take the first class towards that career. And then maybe it's like take a couple, and then maybe it's like I'm going all in and taking a semester or whatever that is. But you can't measure it on the absolute goal for a big project that's going to take a long time.
What brilliant advice. I love that bite-sized chunks, because I think we're so impatient, aren't we? Where
Yes.
it's like, I see the goal and then I want it now. And then I think the first time we come up against a roadblock, we're like, oh, forget it, too hard, I'm not gonna do it. But that little, if it's 2 weeks at a time, or if it's one not smoked cigarette at a time, if you will, or that
Yeah.
kind of thing, that definitely feels manageable.
Yeah.
And again, if we don't put that, it has to be by this date, then I think too, if we see we're not getting toward that, then we're discouraged. But if it's like, it's going to take as long as it's going to take, I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to do it in really small intervals. Oh, I love that. Wow.
Yeah, it also makes it sustainable, and it creates habits, because you're going to build from that little bit, and then you're going to make your measurable little goal is going to get to be, if you're trying to quit smoking, it's going to get to be more like, I'm going to have less cigarettes or whatever.
Right.
In my case, it never really changed. Like the big goal was it was only measurable in, did I get off the medication or not? It was a yes, no.
Right.
But the journey was 5 pounds, 5 pounds, 5 pounds, 5 pounds. So I just kept resetting it. And you have to have some amount of ability to understand that, especially with weight loss, as a natural thing, you're going to waver. So you're going to see your weight up sometimes, you're going to see your weight down sometimes.
Right.
And at the size that I was, it could be 7 or 8 pounds swing, just water. So you also had to find a way to take that measurement where you don't get discouraged by a setback, or what appears to be setback that maybe isn't.
Oh, that's brilliant advice. And what also strikes me as brilliant is that the goal was always about the medication. It was very scientific. There was never any kind of subjective, like feeling bad about yourself, or, I have to do this because, people will tell themselves all kinds of things if they think they're overweight because of society and all that kind of thing. And when we look at it from a health perspective, and this is really going to be better for me for a longer, happier life, and take all of the putting ourselves down out of it, then I think, of course, it's a recipe for success. Yeah, it's tricky.
And to slightly backtrack, when you were talking about roadblocks and that sort of thing, and it also has to do with this too, with setting your goals and that sort of thing. I think you also have to have a bit of an exit strategy and a maintain strategy for what you're doing. In my case, weight loss, you're going to get to a point where you've made your big goal. Like I got off the medication, but you get so habitual and almost addicted to seeing that smaller number on the scale. Well, there comes a point where that's not healthy anymore. And
Yes.
so you got to find a way to stop, or at least in my case, maintain. And knock on wood, so far it's been months now, and I've been within 5 pounds up or down of the number that I stopped at, which is what I was aiming for.
Wow.
But be conscious of that. There has to be an end point.
Yeah. Oh, that's so smart. Because I think too, if something is it seemed like you were really living your life and doing this. It wasn't like this was taking up all of your mental bandwidth all the time. You still, well, COVID, but you still were doing things and having a good time and working. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like you were obsessing about this. This was just another part of your life that you were doing.
Right. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a thing though. It's take advantage of your circumstances. There was extra time during COVID. We weren't going out. We weren't going to places. So there was time to fill also. And that helped be a part of filling that time. And so, I guess another piece to somebody who maybe finds something daunting to start is look at your circumstances too, because it might just be you haven't tried at the right time yet. You know, you haven't tried with the right situation yet. The right thing hasn't come along to make it happen. Now, I'm not saying sit there and wait and sit there and wait and sit there and wait, but understand that sometimes something that looks different might be an opportunity.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Because somebody, for example, might want to go back to school, but they have little kids and they can't, but then it's like empty nest time. Okay, now's the time, or something like that, where
Could be.
yes, true, the circumstances do have to align, or you could also make the circumstances happen for yourself, like, oh, I will get a babysitter or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, that's so much good food for thought here. Wow. So tell me, what specific tools do you have in your toolbox that help you not give up on a daily basis, especially when you're in this maintenance period and just for your life?
Um, I guess that's an interesting question. I mean, I know like in the course of, my journey to get off the medication, there were some specific tools. Music was one, and that's a continuing thing too. I've actually gotten a new appreciation. I had kind of drifted away from music for a long time, and I've heard actually with COVID, a lot of people have drifted back again. But I've found that it's very therapeutic, and there are times where you want to hear one thing or another, and I actually got the Amazon, streaming thing because, I can pick something now, anything out of everything. And if it's a day where I need something light or a day where I need something a little more aggressive, I can do that. When I was walking, some days you needed a little extra oomph, so I would have a very aggressive soundtrack, and some days you just wanted to be mellow. And so music for sure. In the If you're trying to lose weight, certainly an app to track calories is important.
Mm,
For maintaining, actually, and I'm not trying to make a commercial for any specific app, because whatever app works for you is great. There are a million of them out there. My wife and I both use something called YesFit, which you join a race and you don't have to do it at one time, to be a certain number of miles, and then you pay a little bit of money and you can pick whether you want to get a medal or you want to get a shirt or whatever. And then you basically, when you do your workouts, you're walking or running or whatever, it goes towards this. And when you finally finish it, something gets shipped in the mail to you, and it's a little bit of a little kind of a prize. Now you paid for it, but by the time you get it, a few weeks later or whatever, it doesn't feel so much like you paid for it.
you're right.
But it's, just you got to find something that just gets you going a little bit and gets you a little motivated to want to do it. I don't have the off the medication goal anymore, so now it's like, what's the next thing? And for me, I started signing up for like 5Ks and actually a 12 miler now too. So it's a little bit of, that's some of my motivation now. I guess, for tools, your family, your friends, their love. I mean, I think that's an amazing tool. For for wanting to like do the right thing and to keep putting one foot in front of the other and do the things that you want to do in life. I it it's a little bit of a bittersweet story, but one of the reasons I did what I did as well was my father, who I lost a few years ago. A number of years ago, he said to me, he said, "I'm proud of you, however you want to be." He said, "But if you decide that you want to like change yourself physically, do it before you're 50 because it's way harder after." and uh and it's funny because that went through my head because it was basically March when I got off my last medication. It was just a couple weeks after my 50th birthday. So it was kind of
Wow.
interesting. And I try to channel him when I'm running too, because he was a runner. So
Oh,
even the memory of loved ones can be a very, very helpful motivational tool.
absolutely. Wow. Yeah, it's good to have those little incentives, especially when you've hit the big goal. It can be easy to say, okay, well, did that, but and always like for your races and things to have something to look forward to stay in that same space or similar space for.
Mhm.
Oh, that's such good advice.
I think you said a mouthful there too, is give yourself something to look forward to. Like
Mhm.
always give yourself something to look forward to, especially if you're trying to do something that's somewhat difficult for you.
Yeah.
um, you know, and celebrate the little successes. Like, it's absolutely worth it. Like when I'd lose 5 pounds, I'd be happy about it. I'd tell Nadine about it. She probably got completely tired of hearing it, but but she was so gracious to like, give me a smile and a hug and say, good job, and there's little things count, and they make you want to do the next one and they make you want to do the next one. But it's also important to like set bigger things out there, big, is it a vacation? I don't know, or a race or whatever it is, a show, just something, set a little carrot out there to dangle so that
Mm.
something's coming up in a couple of months and it gives you something to feel good about.
Oh, that's so, and the celebrating the little things is one of those things that I think we just forget to do. We're all so busy, but who doesn't want to be celebrated for something? I mean, 5 pounds, that's really hard. It's a really big deal. Or whatever it is. Look, you finished that one course you said you were going to take. Celebrate it and go out to dinner, do something, just
Yep.
something, throw some confetti. And I think that's so, so important. And I also think people will sometimes, look down on that, like, oh, well, that's that. I don't need that. And it's like, but we all do. That's what life is about. It's celebrating things,
You're missing a huge opportunity if you don't. You just really
right?
are. And if you want to be a positive and happy person, why wouldn't you celebrate the little things? Why wouldn't you take that and run with it? Because it's worth it. You did something worth it. You should
Yes.
feel proud of it.
Yeah, I really feel like a lot of times we all just take ourselves way too seriously. Don't you think?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. And even talking about going for things, it is serious business because it is wanting to make a fundamental shift in our lives. But there's also so much fun and joy to be had along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're so optimistic and upbeat. How do you choose happiness in your life?
Um, I guess that's a that's a question that's kind of starts at the beginning. Like, the household that I grew up in, we were taught please and thank you. We were taught you don't take, you ask, and we were taught that I was kind of a hold a door person, and I think you got to start right. But I also think that we live in a world where sometimes like walking in the gray area and taking advantage is celebrated, and that drives me bonkers because I don't think you grow happy by doing that. I feel like most people can't really feel good about that, and so I feel like, be decent to people and smile and say good morning and do the little things. And if you do the little things, you're going to feel good. You're going to at least, no matter what, if you get a response or not, that you did what makes you feel like you did the right thing. And I think be a sportsman. You know, if you're doing sports, have sportsmanship. Don't live in the gray areas. Don't live after the whistle. Like we teach our kids now to live after the whistle, and I just don't understand.
What does that mean? I've not heard that before.
It means like in football, if the whistle goes, maybe get one more little dig in, get one more little hit in, push them down, something like that. You know, it's just and wear them down, and because it's all about winning. And I don't know that. I think sometimes it's not. I think sometimes it's okay if both people win. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that's all right. And I think that's going to make you feel happier. You know, somebody doesn't always have to lose. Now, clearly, if you're in a sports and there's going to be a team that win or lose, that's how you're going to, you know, define, you know, how it was. But I think you can do that the right way. You don't have to do it the wrong way. And I think also like it's always a work in progress. Like, you know, I do try to be happy and upbeat, and I do try to have a smile, and I do try to rub off on other people that way. But my wife will tell you I don't always succeed. You know, it's not every minute of every day, and there are times where I, you know, maybe I didn't choose happy, maybe I did make the choice that wasn't. And I think what you do there is you stop and you reflect and you say, why did I make the choice I made? Was there a better one to be made? Could I have done it a better way and felt better about it, and therefore not brought in some negativity? Um, and I think that's an important part, is to be able to like look at yourself and look at your actions and look at the choices you made and decide, could I have done better? And there's nothing wrong with that. And you know, it's just you gotta spend time doing that. And I guess the last thing would be, it's easy to identify somebody who needs a little joy in their life. And I think it's important that you give them that joy and you try to like, you know, give them that cheer and that positivity. But I think another place where we talked about before, you know, not celebrating the little things and not taking care of ourselves. Sometimes you have people in your life that every time you see them, you smile. And every time you see them, you know they're going to be positive. And every time you see them, you know it's going to be a good thing. And I think we have to celebrate those folks too. I think we have to give them a little bit of that joy, you know, and thank them for being who they are. And not to plug it, but I will tell you that one thing I started doing recently is the particularly special, positive people that have affected my life, I give a copy of your book.
Oh.
Because I feel like they already know how to choose happiness, but why not reinforce it? Why not give them something that day where they made the wrong choice, they can read an anecdote about something very special and maybe get a little smile. So I
Oh.
thank you for having put that out there.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so lovely. Oh, thank you. And I really, I love that so much, because I feel like you're one of those people who tries to be a bringer of joy to others. And then I think when we do that, we can recognize other people, and it's not that many, I have to say, generally, you know, and that is important to, like you said, stop and really recognize things, whether it's in ourselves, stop, how could I have done that differently? Or stop and say, hey, that person needs some kudos because they really made my day better. Yeah, I feel like we just go along and we're just spinning so much and we forget to stop. And that's so important. Yeah, you're one of those people that people will say, whenever I see you, there's a smile on my face. I have a feeling.
I hope so. I hope so.
Sure. Well, I mean, you are so inspirational and so uplifting. And my last question for you is, if you have one kind of takeaway piece of advice. So many of us have been like, I tried to lose weight 1,000 times, or I've tried to quit smoking, or I've tried to do this thing. I've tried to exercise every day. And every time I can't do it. And I'm just like, I'm done trying. I think, you know, after so many years, we're like, oh, I'm done. I just can't do it. So do you have a takeaway to help us get out of that, you know, the don't give up mentality that you have?
I think this is going to rehash a few of the things that we talked about already, but I think number one, ask yourself why you want to do the thing that you've had trouble doing. What is the thing that really drives you to want to do that? Recognize what's worn you down. What is the thing, the challenge that's worn you down, that isn't allowing you to get over that hump.
Mm.
And then maybe the way you've set your goal doesn't work well. Maybe it's too vague, or or maybe it's too specific. Whatever that is, find a way to redefine that goal to get to where you want to be, and look at it from a little bit of a different angle. And again, don't try to beat the big goal in one shot. Do it in small pieces, do it in bite-sized pieces, do it in that little bit at a time, and celebrate those little things. And also look at your circumstances. Something might have changed. When you tried the last time, something might have changed, and maybe the thing that changed is going to make it work this time.
Right, right. I had kind of a light bulb when you were talking about that. I think so often we have to examine what is stopping us in our tracks, because I feel like 9 times out of 10, it's what we're telling ourselves, and really examining what am I encouraging myself? Am I just discouraging myself all the time? How do we think that's going to help us get anywhere by keep putting ourselves down? Oh, that's so great.
And on that same thought process, watch how the words you use in your mind to motivate yourself. If you say I want to do this versus I'm going to do this, it's a different thing. In the mornings when I wanted to go for my walk, I would say I'm going to walk. I'm going to go out there. You don't say I want to, because you want to gives you an opening to not do it.
Oh my gosh. Right? Oh, I need like a moment. That's right. That is so interesting, because there's a lot of times where I feel like we'll say, I don't want to. And that really, well, I don't have to if I don't want to. We almost get like stubborn with ourselves. But if we set the intention, I'm going to do this, and we set it for ourselves, then there's no question.
And you don't want to prove yourself wrong.
Right.
So if you've told yourself I'm going to do this, you don't want to prove yourself wrong. So you end up doing it.
Yes. Wow. I am going to do this. Which, P.S., sounds easy.
Agreed. A lot of what I've said sounds easy. It takes work.
Yeah.
And it's okay, because the best things in life take work.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. And they're so worth doing.
Absolutely.
No matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it is, they're so worth doing. You are a walking embodiment of what's worth doing, really. Thank you so much for your time, for your stellar advice. I really feel like you've changed my life, even just in this talk. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rachel. I appreciate you having me.
Wow. Good luck with your races, and keep us posted on your progress.
Absolutely. Thank
Wonderful.
you so much.
Thank you.